Okay, so on 31 and 30, or is it 32 and 33?
32.
32 and 33, you have all of this stuff that should have been there. Please don't write it on your study guide. It is here for your convenience. But what we're going to look at is basically 33 right here. This is 33. Let's look at the advantages. They had a cause which they believed in. What did they believe in? What was this continuous thing about nature? What was this natural thing? They believed in their rights, right? Also, they were fighting for their homes and their families. They realized if they lost, would stuff be taken away for them possibly? Yeah, they were already on that path, right, in the Quartering Act. George Washington was their leader. And this is going to be a strategic move by the Second Continental Congress. They're going to appoint George Washington as Commander-in-Chief. Where is George Washington from? Virginia. Wait, where is the revolution happening?
New England.
New England. So why did they appoint him strategically?
So that
They could bring in who? The South, right? If they put a Southerner as the general, maybe the South would follow. Okay? So this was a strategic move. They also have Ben Franklin as a diplomat. They're able to withstand physical hardships because they're out here in the colonies. They're going to get foreign aid. Do y'all know what nation's going to give them foreign aid? France. And this is why we will owe them in World War I, World War II, Vietnam. We're constantly repaying that debt back. We go to war to help them a lot. Okay, lastly, we have foreign and military leaders who will help out. Their disadvantages, however, there's more disadvantages. All Americans are not united. Specifically, what area did we talk about not wanting to rebel and they were loyalists? The South and also New York. There was no draft system. They had no money. Where had all the money gone? To where? England, because remember they had to pay in gold and silver and mercantilism and the taxes. So they had no money. They had continental currency that they're just going to keep on printing out, and what's going to happen to the value of it? It's going to go down. Continental Congress had no power to tax because that's what they were arguing about, right? Only their local legislators. There was jealousy between the colonies because everybody keeps on saying Massachusetts is drawing us into this war, and George is like, we had no clue there was a war going on. Okay? There was little training or experience for our soldiers. What was the only one experience they had? French and Indian War, but those people are now grandpas. Okay? So it's their sons. Okay? And their grandchildren who are involved in this. They have no navy. They have very few supplies and equipment. They're poorly organized. So do they even have the way to have a war? No, it's missing. Okay, and then on 32, what were the strengths of the British? They are better trained, they have a good navy, they have a larger population, they have supplies, wealth, and loyalists. Do they have everything to fight a war?
Yes.
Except they do not have the heart for a war. Because these people have the passion, but they don't have the items. They have the items, but they don't have the drive.
And they send in their B team.
Yes, they're going to send in their B team, the Haitians. They're also overconfident because they have all of the supplies. They have great generals. They don't have great generals. Some of them we talked about with Braddock's, they were just wealthy guys, right? They were being appointed. They're 3,000 miles away. They have government that is corrupt, parliament, because we know they're in bed with the merchants. Also, they didn't strike in swift blows. They had to pay the Haitians. The Haitians are German mercenaries that are coming in. Do you think these guys even care? No. They had to take all of the territory. The war was not popular in England because in order for them to fund this war, what would they have to do? Tax. And lastly, they had trouble in Ireland. So I'm going back a little bit back from our last timeline. The Intolerable Acts. Who was this placed on? What city? Boston, because of the what? Boston Tea Party. It's going to punish them, close their port. It is also going to send the trial of British officials to England. It also makes them house more soldiers. It restricts their town meetings. It closes their harbor. It takes away their colonial charter. Again, it's only punishing Boston. The Quebec Act takes away the Ohio River Valley from the colonists and gives it to who? The French British citizens. And what does it do to their rights? Does it give them more rights or does it decrease their rights? Decrease. There's no freedom of religion. There's no juries. Okay? There's no rights given to these people, and this is a precursor to the colonists freaking out saying that could be us. So the First Continental Congress meets. They meet for ways to consider, how do we address the king now? They do the association, right, which is the double whammy boycott. They're not sending what? Resources, and they're not importing, and hopefully that they will hurt who? The merchants. Why are they going to Lexington and Concord? To get the weapons, but oops, the British know that this is happening, and this is where the fire occurs, and shots were fired. Second Continental Congress meets because they're like, oh my gosh, we're fighting. We're at a war, and are we organized? So they appoint George Washington. Why?
Because he's a
So that the
Southerner to unite the New Englanders and the Southerners, because many Southerners were what? Loyalists. Then they go to Ticonderoga. Okay, how many of y'all know what Ticonderoga is? It's a pencil, okay? It is a pencil, yes. Okay, and this is why they're going to Ticonderoga. It's not because they're going to fight the war with pencils, but they're going because a pencil is what to school? A supply, right? And they're going to Ticonderoga for what? Supplies. So that's what I want you to get. They're going to Ticonderoga for supplies, not pencils, because that's going to make a very, very weird war of people just throwing pencils. But they're going there for supplies. What type of supplies would they be getting at this fort? Cannons. What else? Ammunition, guns. Okay, they're getting all this stuff. And they're actually sending out a guy who knows how to move a lot of stuff. His name is Ethan Allen. He knows how to move a lot of stuff because he owns a furniture company. Okay, and there's a furniture company today. You can see the Ethan Allen commercials.
I love
And Ethan Allen goes out with the Green Mountain Boys out there. It's not like his backup band or something like that. It's just like a group of mountaineer boys who are,
Boy Scout.
they're not Boy Scouts. They're actually people who look at the frontier and tell people about the Indians and their movement and stuff.
Oh, so they're
So-
like little spies.
Yeah, they're privateers. And they're out there and they go to Ticonderoga, but most people know Ethan Allen. So Ethan Allen like goes up to the fort, he's like, hey, British people, I'm here to move a couple of things that they told me to move. And they're like, oh, Ethan Allen, you're the guy that moves stuff because you're the furniture dude. They let him go in, he takes all the stuff. Okay.
I love this.
Okay, so where do you think they're gonna take all of these supplies? To the south, the middle, or New England? Why to New England? That's where the war is. What specific city are they gonna take it to? Boston, because isn't this where we've seen much of the revolution occur?
Yes.
So they're gonna take all of these supplies to Boston. And it's a place in Boston called Bunker Hill. So I'm gonna draw, I draw terribly, just bear with me. This is Massachusetts, here's Boston. In Boston, there is a hill called Bunker Hill. I'm just gonna draw my hill right here. And they're gonna put all of their stuff, their cannons, their ammunition, and their soldiers here. Because they're waiting for the British to come in on their boats. They're coming in, and what are they gonna do as the British try to get off these boats? Blow. They're gonna get them, they're gonna blow them up, whatever they can with those cannons. And y'all probably know from 8th grade history, they're like, don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes, right? Because they have very limited supply. And their accuracy from far away is not good. So they're telling them, wait till you see their eyes. So the first time the British try to storm the hill, do the British get it? No, because they have supplies. The second time the British try to storm the hill, they don't get it. The third time, what has happened to their supplies? It's gone, and the British storm the hill, the colonists run away. But this is a signal to the colonists. The colonists think this is a victory because if they have supplies, can they stand the British down? Yes. And to the British, they realize, oh my gosh, is this war going to be a little bit longer? Yes. If they get weapons, could they possibly beat us? So this is why, when after Bunker Hill, they're going to send in the Haitians. Who are the Haitians? Germans, because they realize they need more help after Bunker Hill. And last thing, I know here's other colonies up here of New England, but I'm going to make the St. Lawrence River. This is Canada. What they're going to do here is the British realize they cannot get a fort in this area because they can't take it over. So they're going to try to come and make forts in Canada so that their soldiers could come in and attack New England because they want to keep the revolution here. But what's gonna happen is the colonists said, if we invade Canada and prevent them from having their forts, would this make it difficult? And so, what they're gonna do is they're gonna invade Canada, and they're like, okay, we stopped the forts, but wouldn't Canada be a cool 14th colony? And so they also have that aspiration. There's gonna be many times we will try to take over Canada. We'll get through that in history. Okay, so now they invade Canada, they're not successful. Then this is what comes out, common sense. You just picked it up today, the reading. I don't know how many of you picked up common sense as you walked in the store, but you picked up this reading at the door. Okay, I need to pick one up too. Okay, we're gonna be reading Common Sense, and Thomas Paine was one of the Enlightenment guys that we had talked about. I'm gonna start reading it because we're not gonna read the whole entire thing. It says, despite the shooting at Lexington and Concord and Bunker Hill, despite the British burning of Falmouth, Maine, I did not get to talk about that, but they're burning it because they're trying to come in and invade New England. And despite the king's hiring of German Haitians, mercenaries, the American colonists professed to be fighting merely for reconciliation. I want you to think about this word. What does reconciliation mean? To reconcile, what does it mean to reconcile?
To
Make peace, exactly. They're like breaking up, but they're like, no, we can come back together, right? Okay? And they're trying to make peace, come back together. But killing redcoats with one hand and waving an olive branch with another seemed ridiculous to Thomas Paine. A 39-year-old agitator, blah, 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 course maker, self-educated. He's gonna rocket into fame with a 47-page pamphlet. We're only gonna read a little bit of this pamphlet, not all of the 47 pages. It will sell a lot of copies, and it's gonna accelerate the drift towards independence. So as I read this, I want you to think, is he being enlightened? Because y'all know before a fight, do people kind of encourage and egg on a fight?
Yeah.
Not that you've ever partaken in it, but you've probably seen it, right? And the crowd mounts, right? And they say their fighting chants or whatever it is to egg on the people to have the courage and the ganas to go, right? Right? I don't know how to say it nice in English, but ganas.
It's Jamie.
Mr.
She
Armstrong
won't.
says it, but Mr. Armstrong's Mr. Armstrong.
Very true.
Okay.
Said it was hot as balls.
Okay. Okay, so now we're just gonna have to totally read.
That's okay.
So whoever watches it. Okay, so we're gonna read this and we're gonna see what is it that he's encouraging to fight. What are those words that are the fighting words? And what are the roads to enlighten, the reason? And I'm gonna read a couple of these paragraphs, but not all of them. I'm gonna go straight to this one.
Does that mean like that in Spanish?
Yeah. Okay. But she, England, has protected us, say some. Where has England protected them? The French and Indian War. So they're like, look, like England, she's protected y'all. But then here comes the rebuttal. But she has engrossed and monopolized us, is true. How has she monopolized the colonies?
The tea stuff.
Oh, the Tea Act, right? Could I even say mercantilism? They're like, England is monopolized us and defended the continent at our expense. How did she defend the continent at their expense? We know it's the French and Indian War, but what has she done at their expense to pay for this? She has taxed them, right? You're saying she's defending us? No, we paid her to defend us. We're paying her right now. Is this enlighten their reasoning, or is it inflammatory that they're egging on a war? Or do y'all want to say both? Both? Okay, that's fine. She, at our expense, as well as her own, is admitted. She would have defended Turkey for the same motives. So would she have protected another country if it dealt with trade? Yeah. She doesn't care about who we are. She just cares about what? great. The money. Is that egging on the war? Okay, let's look at the next paragraph. But Britain is the parent country, say some, then the more shame upon her conduct. Even brutes don't devour their young, nor savages make war on their families. Okay, is that reason, enlightened, or is that inflammatory, egging on the war? It's egging on the war because he's like, look, England's an animal, right? She's fighting amongst her family, devouring their young. Even animals don't devour their own young. Okay, this is like, it's getting out there, okay? Wherefore the assertive true turned her reproach. But it only happens not to be true, or only partially so. Europe, not England, is the parent country of America. Okay? This world hath been an asylum for the persecuted lovers of civil and religious liberty from every part of Europe. Can y'all tell me some people who come to the New World that are not even English, that are persecuted? Middle
Quakers.
colonies, the Quakers. Is there other ethnic groups that are in the colonies that are not even English?
Dutch and Swedes.
Swedes, Dutch, right? Scott-Irish. And they're saying, England's not the parent. Who is the parent? Europe. Hither have they fled, not from the tender embraces of the mother, but from the cruelty of the monster. And it is so far true of England that the same tyranny which has drove the first immigrants from her home pursues their descendants still. Oh, so people are fleeing her because is she a good mom or a bad mom? Bad. Every submission or dependency on Great Britain tends to directly involve this continent in European wars and quarrels, and has set us up with variances with nations who would otherwise to seek our friendship. So what quarrels and wars are they talking about? French and Indian, right? 7 Years' War. And they're saying England's taking us. Is England a good parent or a bad parent? Okay, let's keep, is this enlightened reasoning or is this inflammatory and egging on the war? Okay, let's keep on going. I'm gonna skip that. Everything that is right and reasonable pleads for separation. The blood of the slain. Who is this blood that they're talking about? What events have we had blood slain? Boston Massacre, Lexington and Concord. The weeping voice of nature cries, "'Tis time to part." Even the distance which the Almighty hath placed England and America is a strong and natural proof that the authority of one over the other was never the sign of heaven. Hey, are they reasoning? Are they being inflammatory? Inflammatory, right? And there's a little bit of reason. They say distance here. But if you say you can still pass the violations over, then I ask you, hath your house been burnt? Hath your property been destroyed before your face? Where was property destroyed before people's face? When they were smuggling, right? Have your wife and children destitute of a bed to lie on or bread to live on? What is he referring to? The Quartering Act. Have you lost a parent or a child by their hand, and yourself, the ruined and wretched survivor? What event is he talking about here? That people have lost their children, their wife, and they're the wretched survivor by themselves. Where have people died? Boston Massacre, Lexington and Concord, right? He's saying, if you've lost land, if your property's been destroyed, if you don't have your bed or your food, and you've lost your family, if you have not, then you are not to judge those who have. But if you have, you lost that stuff, they killed your wife, they took your property. If you have, and you can still shake hands with the murderers, then you are unworthy of the name husband, father, friend, or lover. And whatever may be your rank in life, you have the heart of a coward. Okay, is this inflammatory now?
Yes.
Yes, he's like, look, all of y'all been saying peace, reconcile, but they took your bed, they took your food, they took your wife, they killed your brother, they've done all of this stuff, and you're still hugging the murderer. You are not worthy of all this stuff. Is he now egging on the war? Now they're taking on the gloves and they're getting ready. Okay? Every quiet method for peace has been ineffectual. Tell me these methods of peace that have been ineffectual. What have they tried to do to get peace? Petition, right? They boycotted. They said it's done. Our prayers have been rejected with disdain. Wherefore, since nothing but blows will do, for God's sake, let us come to the final separation. Is he saying now to fight? No man was a warmer wisher for reconciliation than myself before the fatal 19th of April, 1775, Lexington. But the moment of that event of that day was made known, I rejected the hardened, sullen-tempered Pharaoh of England, George III, forever, and the disdain that wretch that, with the pretended title of father of his people, can unfeelingly hear of their slaughter, and composedly sleep with the blood upon his soul. Okay. Reasoning or inflammatory? Inflammatory. Now looking at this, is this going to encourage people to revolt? Yes. What groups of people are going to read this and be like, I wasn't thinking about it that way, but now got a point, Thomas Paine. Southerners, the loyalists, exactly. So then, that's Thomas Paine again. He wants to give us more wisdom. Common sense comes out. People are reading it, right? But I want you to see, this is January. Y'all know the Declaration comes out in July. Has it taken time for people to read this and be like, okay, let me get the courage up to do this? Courage is the word I needed earlier. Okay. So, it takes time. So are they eager revolutionaries or reluctant? Reluctant because they're trying to reconcile all the time. And so, British are going to evacuate Boston because they realize this is in the hands of who? This whole area of New England is in the hands of the Patriots. Hence the name of the football team. Yeah. Okay. And what they're going to do is they're going to come down this river called the Hudson. And they're going to come to the middle colony, specifically to one loyal colony called New York. Okay? They're going to try to come to New York because they said if we put all of our soldiers here, these are my soldiers, I don't draw good, they're one-legged too. And they said if we put our soldiers here, we could quarantine the rebellion to this area. But with Thomas Paine's common sense, going around the colonies, can they really quarantine the war in this area? No, because this beliefs and the challenging of a political system can permeate boundaries, right? Because it's thought. They can't take what's out of your head, right? And so even though they're trying to quarantine it here, we will see it spread. And this is why it will spread, and this is why we get the Declaration of Independence. And I want you to take that out. You just got it. It was up there. We have to read a couple of things here. But most people think that this Declaration of Independence is written to who? Who do we always think that they're addressing this to? The government. But wait, haven't they written a lot of letters to this king and parliament? Yes, they petitioned the heck out of them. But now, you have to understand, this is a breakup letter. Okay, this is a breakup letter. When usually people break up, has it been a long time coming?
Yes.
Has the boy or the girl or the significant other addressed the person about their behavior? Yes, to a point that they're blue in their face. Are the colonists blue in their face?
Yes.
And so now, they've broken up, right? This declaration's like, peace out, we're done. And when people fight, after they're broken up, do they keep on going back to that former significant other and keep on telling what they've done wrong? No, who do they go to now? Everybody else. Why? Why do they go to everybody else? So they could get help, but also they could do what? Talk bad about them to understand this is my side of it, right? And that's exactly what the Declaration is. It is the colonial side of their breakup. Who are they going to blame consistently? Because they're going to say, he. Who is that he? The king. Okay? They also, at this moment, they're doing this for everybody else. But what is it that they need from everybody else? Y'all say when people break up, they need the sympathy of others, so that's why they explain their side. But why is it at this moment they need to explain to the rest of the world why they're fighting? They can get their support. What do they need for support? What are they missing? Weapons. They need to explain their side. They need to look like they're just, right? They need to look like they have been belittled They have tried and they've tried, right? And because if people start to feel sympathetic for them, will they help? And that is the purpose of the Declaration of Independence. It is a breakup letter. But do you think the king is going to listen to this? No, because he has heard this over and over and over again. So we're going to go over up a couple of things. It says, when in the course of human events becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which connected them with another. What does that mean? The people have the right to what? Break up with their government, right? It says, and to assume the powers of the earth. What are the powers of the earth? This whole natural stuff we've been talking about. The right to what? The right to govern themselves, right? Right? I'm going to go to the next one. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. These rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Who is he quoting? Thomas Jefferson is quoting John Locke, but he changed it, right? Yeah, from property to the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, the government are instituted among men. Again, isn't that what we've been reading in all these documents? Men have rights, men have rights. And deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Wherever foreign government becomes so destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. Is this coming out of nowhere? Have they been saying this time and time again in every single petition? This breakups don't come out of nowhere. They don't come out of left field. Okay? So what we're going to look at is, what are they referring to? I know we're going to skip all of these he's and we're going to go to the back side of the he's. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for their tenure of office and the amount of payment of their salaries. What act are they upset about that their money is no longer paying these people? The Townsend Act, remember we did that today? Where it takes away the power of the people, which is the purse. He has erected a multitude of offices and sent swarms of their officers to harass our people. Who are these swarms of officers who are harassing people? The tax collectors. He is kept amongst us in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislators. What are they upset about? The Quartering Act. He has affected and rendered the military independent of superior to the civil power. The military is superior to their government. For quartering large troops. Are they really upset about that still?
Yes.
Because they mention it twice. For cutting off our trade with all the parts of the world. What are they upset about? What is it that trade that they only could trade with England? Mercantilism. For imposing taxes without our consent. Haven't we heard that time and time again? For depriving us in many cases without the benefits of trial by jury. What are they upset about?
Not a fair trial.
The not a fair trial. What was that court system? Starts with A. And morality courts, you are guilty until proven innocent, and there's no jury, there's only a judge. To transporting us beyond the seas for tried pretense offenses, which was what happened in Boston in the Intolerable Acts. Looking at this, does the king already know all this stuff? Who is this letter for? The people in other countries to realize what? That they need help, and have they been treated badly? So who is the enemy according to this letter? The king. And we have been subjected to all of this nastiness. Okay? So now let's go back to our notes. The declaration is out. They're fully now done. Reconciliation is over. There have been reluctant revolutionaries. That's a lot of alliteration, right? Everybody say this. They were trying to reconcile because they're reluctant revolutionaries. I promise there's a test question to ask us about their speed. They try to what? Reconcile, but they're what type of revolutionaries? Reluctant. Okay? So, the war is now in New York, in the middle colonies. And this is a very famous painting about Washington crossing the Delaware. Y'all probably have seen him on the boat, and it's like he's gonna fall over, but he's not. That picture is actually a rendering of an artist about what is going on here. Because Washington will come into the New York area, he's gonna cross the Delaware, and he's gonna attack the Haitians at Christmas. Most times when wars are occurring during Christmas time, what is everybody doing? Celebrating. So this attack is a surprise attack. And these men are a little bit inebriated, so are they gonna be able to fight well? And so this is why it is a great victory at Trenton and later Princeton, because it is a surprise attack. Okay, so the British make plans to capture New York, right? Because they want to keep the war over here, but they're gonna come up with a plan. Here's the Hudson. They're gonna do a three-prong approach because they're gonna invade at Saratoga. And there's gonna be one general. His name is Burgoyne. He's supposed to come down from Canada here. St. Leger is supposed to come from the west and attack. And then Howe is supposed to come up north from Pennsylvania. But there's a problem. Howe needs to get a compass because he goes south. So does he ever show up? No, the Indians, hooray, have kept Leger from getting here. So there's only how many generals that show up? Is that good for the colonists? One general shows up versus three.
Oh, that's better.
That's better because now what has happened to the army they're gonna fight? It's smaller. So it is great that Howe went the wrong way. It is great that Leger was stopped by the Indians and that only Burgoyne showed up. And so now they have a smaller militia that they're fighting. And anything that is underlined on your notes you have to know. So the Battle of Saratoga is a turning point. Because will the colonists be able to get a victory?
Yes.
Because only 1/3 of the army showed up. And we are gonna see that this is gonna lead to the Franco-American alliance. France has read the declaration. They're like, oh yeah, we should help. Revenge sounds nice because we don't like those British people. But have they believed in the colonists yet? No, but now that they have this victory, the French and the Franco-American alliance are gonna send over weapons. They're gonna send over aid with military leaders. They're gonna send over money. And did the colonists need this?
Yes.
Because we realized at Bunker Hill, if they had all of this stuff, they will be very successful. Can I finish the war? I think you can finish it in like 8 minutes. It won't take me that long. Okay, let's flip over to the other side. And this will be very helpful when you go over chapter 8 today. Because some of the questions, like I think the last question on chapter 8 is this one, 16 right here. This is number 16, just a hint. So you're not going all over the place. Let me finish up the war, okay? So what happens is the British set up headquarters in New York, because where are they trying to keep the revolution? In New England. But are the ideas about the revolution spreading? Yes, because of common sense and the Declaration. And we're gonna see that they're trying to hem the British. Rogers Clark is driving the British out of the Ohio River Valley. John Paul Jones is out in the seas. They've taken all the merchant ships in New England and they put them out there to prevent the British from bringing in their navy and bringing in reinforcements. So the campaign is gonna move to the south. Why do you think the British go south? What's
Because
down
they have
south?
supporters.
Because they're trying to gain support from the loyalists. Right, so they're gonna go all the way to Georgia, and they're gonna march their troops to Georgia and say, hey loyalists, join us, we're marching to Virginia. And then they go to South Carolina, they're like, hey loyalists, if you're with us, march with us. And then they go to North Carolina, they say, hey loyalists, if you're with us, march with us to Virginia. Think about all this marching from Georgia. What has happened to their soldiers?
No, they're gonna.
They're tired. And by the time they get to Virginia to fight at Yorktown, what are they doing? They're sleeping, their feet hurts, they did not have the right shoes, they're hungry. Do they have the best soldier ready for Yorktown? Also, the French are helping out at Yorktown. They're outside in the Chesapeake Bay preventing the British from sending in reinforcements. Does Cornwallis need those reinforcements? Because he had a bad game plan, he went to Georgia to get the loyalists and march all the way up, and now they're all tired. So in the Battle of Yorktown, Cornwallis is gonna have to surrender because his troops are what? Tired. Because they did the wrong game plan trying to get the loyalists over. And so at Yorktown with the surrender, this will lead to the Treaty of Paris, which is question 16. Great Britain will recognize the US as independent. Do you really think that's gonna happen? Not really, and this is why we will have the War of 1812. The US gets to acquire everything to Canada, Florida. We lose Florida. We get to the bottom of Georgia. We get to the Mississippi and the Atlantic. The Mississippi River is opening up for trade for America. Spain gets Florida, and y'all know like the panhandle of Florida and the bottom of Alabama, they get that land. Continental Congress is requested to repay the loyalists and the merchants for their damages. Do you think that's gonna happen? No. And lastly, the Americans and now the British Canadians, right, that are French, get to share the fisheries off the St. Lawrence River. We're done with the revolution.